Hi, everybody. I'm not sure what happened, but the countdown got cut short, and that is okay. We will move right ahead. I hope you are all doing well. Let me see what this little thing is. I've got a little, it's basically nothing, it looks like. So, okay, let's move ahead with this horrific story about David and let me share this. All right, there we go. All right, so we'll move ahead with this horrible story about David Allen Turpin and Louise Anna Turpin, and how this nightmare played out in Paris, California, um, starting a couple years ago, and then we find out more in the recent weeks. Now let me get the my I'll make sure that this is comfortable to look at. So we will do this, and then we will do this, and we should be ready. Ready to roll. There we go. Okay, so now then, I hope everybody is well this Saturday night. Okay, here we go. That is private chat. Why is it there? Here we go. I found it. Okay. It's a horrible story. You see Louise Turpin on the far left of your screen. And then Mr. Turpin, the patriarch, is the rather odd fellow with the gray hair, sort of cut like early Beatles, mop head, little Dutch boy kind of haircut. And to the right is his criminal defense attorney. Now, the story is a nightmare. I'm just going to briefly do a background on it because truly, those of us in true crime community, we know the story. We remember it from when it initially came out. It was a nightmare then. It's a nightmare now. And it doesn't seem to have stopped being a nightmare for the majority of these kids involved. So, David and Louise Turpin are originally from Texas. They have had people from from her family specifically who have done interviews related to this case. And there have been neighbors. The biggest one that I know of was an interview that was done by a man and woman that lived in a very rural area, but they were neighbors of David and Louise Turpin. And what there's also some neighbors from California that lived across the street from the Turpins, and they've got some unusual tales. So all of these people now, after the fact, they have these horrible tales or these very odd circumstances. Like this one man in California who lived across the street from the family, he said that the kids would march, that he would see them marching around in the middle of the night. And then the interviewer said, well, how long would they do that? And his answer was hours. Okay, I don't want to cast judgment on another person. Okay, I recognize there are some people that are not in a position to be, mandatory reporters, sort of. That gets you to a point that you become comfortable with the idea of reporting a situation where children or elderly people may be being abused. But there are people that are really far removed from that kind of life. And so to make a call to a government agency saying, hey, these kids may be having problems, this may be very, very uncomfortable for some people. It's so far outside their realm of what is normal for their day-to-day lives that they just can't imagine interfering with someone else's family. But nevertheless, if you're the guy across the street and you look outside at 2 o'clock in the morning and you see 12 kids, 13 kids marching around a house, and then you wake up 3 hours later, sun's coming up, they're still marching, are you going to feel like something is wrong? Maybe going to ask for a little, hey guys, there's something going on at this address. I really don't want to tell my name, but I'm kind of feeling a little worried about these kids. It's not normal to march for hours and hours and hours. And they are, right? They even had stories about people out in the yard laying sod at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So some really odd, strange behaviors. Now the family in Texas, their stories too involved unusual behaviors that were noticed. Their own kids actually went over to David and Louise Turpin's house, and then when they came home and told the things they had seen and done, the parents never let them go back. So it's quite a bit, going wrong. Now the ages of the 13 children ranged from, well, they're not all children, but ranged from 2 years old up to 29 years old. So you got a young woman who's 30, nearly 30, who really hasn't progressed past the age of about 12 or 13 because she's been in such a horrifically neglectful, cognitively empty, no stimulation at all. And they just haven't, developmentally, they just have failed to thrive, right? Because everything's so empty. They were required to sit the majority of the day. So there's a video out there where you can see David Turpin leaving for work, and some of the kids are sitting down in the middle of the hallway. And he waves and he smiles at them and waves goodbye as if it was a perfectly normal occurrence for children to just be sitting about the house. It's very odd. Now then, as we know, on January the 14th, 2018, then 17-year-old Jordan Turpin escaped from the resident by crawling out the front window of the family home. She had a phone. It did not have service, but she somehow knew that she could dial 911 and get emergency help. And she said, me and my siblings, we need help. And I've got some sisters and a brother that are currently chained to beds. They have marks on them, which later turned out to be bruises, and we need help. Thankfully, the police believed her, despite her unusual cadence and tone. And they believed her. They went into the home, and Louise Turpin, it was uncovered that she was very likely might be considered a hoarder. The home was filled, brimming to the top, with trash and brand new toys and clothes that had never been opened. Even though all of the children were in various stages of malnourishment, the refrigerator and freezer were filled with all kinds of food. And of course, you can see Louise and David and see that they are not themselves malnourished. They themselves are quite chunky and butterballed and have had plenty of calories and had their needs met. Okay? So, there was all kinds of, there were any type of abuse that you can imagine, from torture, potential SA. There was obviously physical abuse. It was all there. And there was incredible psychological abuse, where the oldest, the 29-year-old, she was required to lock up the younger kids in cages or put chains on them and that kind of thing. So her abuse is compounded and complicated in that not only did she have abuse inflicted upon her, but then it was complicated by the fact that she was coerced into being a monster against the little ones that she loved. So there have been books written about this situation, all kinds of papers and peer-reviewed journals, and the experts in family abuse basically say this is an extraordinary case for quite a number of reasons. Now, February 2019, the both of the Turpin parents pleaded guilty on 14 felony counts, including cruelty to a dependent adult. They had a couple of kids that were over 18, but again, they had been in such a unresponsive, non-nurturing home that they're cognitively they failed to thrive. Physically, they failed to thrive as well, but there were the cognitive delays, the developmental delays were dramatic at best. There was child cruelty, torture, there was imprisonment. And in April of the same year, after pleading guilty, February 2019, then they put on this little trial. And then April, they were sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Okay? David Turpin was born in 1961. He was a computer engineer from Virginia Tech. He worked with Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. In short, he's a genius. We saw this type of phenomenon with Timothy, oh Lord, I've forgotten his name. Timothy that killed all of his kids. What was his name? Not Smith. Timothy Jones. We found out that Timothy Jones was not only excelling in this whole computer type engineering domain, but that he had actually been accepted into medical school. And it did look like at the time that part of the death of all these kids was in preparation to free him so that he would be able to pursue the medical degree, correct? The problem was he also had developed quite a drug habit. Now, so the fact that David Turpin first of all, he graduated Virginia Tech, which is stunning. But he was also working for Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin. He's a genius. Unfortunately, some of these people that have this very unusually high IQ, many of them are socially stunted. The brain doesn't seem to have the capacity to manage the extraordinary intellect that some of these people possess and still being able to conform in a way that is natural to the social demands. And so relationships are quite unusual. The function of relationships can be quite punitive at times. And if a person like David Turpin is dependent upon structure and schedules, and then you end up with this kind of crazy social home environment. You got 13 kids and a wife who is clearly mentally ill, that can be enough stress and strain on someone that may be on the spectrum, and he does appear to be, that he might begin to act out in an abusive or an erratic way. Now, Louise, who was born in 1968, 7 years younger than David, she she went to school in West Virginia, and the couple met in Princeton, and they ended up getting married in Virginia when David was 23 and Louise was 16. She was a child. We know now, based on reports from her sister, her brother, a nephew, that Louise experienced a devastating amount of abuse as a child. The abuse was psychological, it was physical, and it was SA. Now, this is where things, again, we see parallels to other criminal behavior, mental illness. So we've got the common thread of high IQ potential, high IQ, clumsy social acumen, possible Asperger's or autism, right? That is a parallel that runs through some of these crimes. And now you've got the religious aspect. So the Turpins were Pentecostal Christians who adhered to the teachings of the Quiverful movement. The Quiverful movement carried the belief that the couple have numerous children because God has called on them to do so. So a quiver is, the thing you wear on your back that you keep all of your arrows in. So quiverful means you just keep having kids. You never stop. You live a life that is focused on the more children you have, the more God is going to love you. They produced 10 daughters and 3 sons between 1988 and 2015, and eventually they ended up engaged in a swinging lifestyle. So you had this mentally ill woman, a husband who's brilliant, but quite possibly on the spectrum, engaging in an enormous amount of alcohol use, and they suspect drug use, with the weird sexual stuff, with 13 babies at home. This was a train wreck looking for a location to happen. And it ended up happening in California, even though they had lived in Fort Worth and they had lived in Rio Vista, which is just outside of Fort Worth. This was a true mess. Now, in 2014, the Turpins, finally landed in Paris, California, after making the rounds all around Texas. And the neighbors reported that the children were always very silent, unless what? Spoken to, like children should be seen and not heard. Spare the rod, spoil the child, right? I don't want to go into all of the distraction, but let's go to the escape and rescue in 2018. Jordan Turpin, the 17-year-old daughter, she was able to get out of the house. She ran down to the end of the block and around, and she called 911 with the police. And even though she had never really spoken to anyone outside the home, even though she had never really ventured outside the home, certainly never alone, she did manage to tell her story, and that started the ball rolling. Riverside County Sheriff's Department ended up entering the home that morning for a welfare check, and Louise and David were taken into custody. Louise was perplexed and confused about why the police were even there. However, the Riverside Sheriff's deputy encountered human excrement, decaying garbage, dead pets in the home, molding food, every surface of the home covered in trash, and 12 children, with one of them being shackled to a bed, appearing for weeks. The kids were horribly malnourished. Many of the kids had bruises on them, and they were all caked with dirt. They were all weak and could barely stand. The deputies believed that all of them were under 18, when in fact only 7 were under 18 years old. The house was filled with hundreds of journals, written by the children chronicling their lives. They have such a complete and clear story of what these kids went through. It's incredible. Okay? All right, now then. The Turpins eventually were charged with 12 counts of torture, 12 counts of false imprisonment, 7 counts of abuse of an adult, dependent adult, and 6 counts of child abuse. And then David received an additional charge of lewd acts on a child under 14. They were not provided bail. And the media reporting that they were held at either 9 million or 12 million bail. David was eventually charged with perjury due to some affidavits that he filed, in which he asserted that children were being educated in a private school, and they in fact were not. February 22nd, 2019, David and Louise changed their not guilty pleas to guilty to 1 count of torture, 3 counts of willful child cruelty, 4 counts of false imprisonment, and 6 counts of cruelty to an adult dependent. Both were sentenced to life imprisonment with possibility of parole after 25 years. Experts believe they will never receive parole due to the severity of their crime, making it effectively a life sentence. David was sent to Mule Creek State Prison and then ultimately to California State Prison. And Louise was sent to the Central California Women's Prison. Now then, we are going to go through this sentencing and the victim statements because I want to analyze their behavior. Now, watch at how they are listening to the judge, hanging on every word, looking very soft and respectful and attentive.
False imprisonment of a dependent adult within the meaning of Penal Code Section 368B1. To that new and different charge, which the court will do by interlineation in the information, through the entering of plea guilty, with the understanding that the same sentence that had been previously mentioned to you in time will still be what you will receive. And then Mr. Beecham or Mr. Godin would like to do is take a factual basis for that plea, like we did when we were here for sentencing.
For selection perfection, the choice is clear. Thanksgiving with Specs.
So,
the fun starts here.
Remember, they haven't been sentenced yet, and I think that they're being respectful because they don't yet know what the children are going to say. The hope being if the children side with them and say, no, my parents are great people, that they won't get such a bad sentence.
Yes, Your Honor, people would like to request that count 20 be amended to include
now, what they're doing is they're reducing some charges here in an agreement, so they're getting their wording straight. But the reaction of these two mentally ill people was so astounding and interesting to me that I thought you guys might be interested in going through it.
To 368 subdivision B.
And then in count 32, to violation of the Penal Code Section 237B, which is false imprisonment of a dependent adult in the meaning of Penal Code Section 368B1. How do you plead to that charge, Mr. Turpin?
Guilty.
And Mrs. Turpin? Yes. All right, and it will be the same dates and same alleged victims. After directly examining the defendant, court finds that the defendant understands the nature of the charges against him and the consequences of their pleas.
And I'm having a little bit of trouble with David Turpin's defense attorney. I really don't like her. Watch her; she's the far right.
And Mrs. Turpin? All right, and it will be the same dates and same alleged victims.
She's so it's almost like she thinks she's a little co-ed, and she's gonna smile at the judge and be all sweet, say, "Look how pretty and cute I am." But the same woman, after sentencing is handed down, it's a whole different ballgame.
After directly examining the defendant, court finds that the defendant's understands the nature of the charges against him, the consequences of the police, and the police are free and voluntary. Ben, factual basis of dispute.
Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Turpin. First, Mr. Turpin. Is it true that on or about January 15, 2015, through and including January 14, 2018 in the County of Riverside, you did in fact commit a violation of Penal Code Section 237, Subdivision B, within the meaning of Penal Code Section 368, Subdivision B, Subsection 1, in that you willfully and unlawfully by violence, menace, fraud, or deceit violate the personal liberty of Jane Doe number 4, who was then a dependent adult within the meaning of Penal Code Section 237, Subdivision B, and 368, Subdivision B, Subsection 1. Yes. Mrs. Turpin.
So they just admitted to holding the adult children hostage.
Mr. Turpin, is it true that on or about January 15, 2015 through and including January 14, 2018 in the County of Riverside, you did in fact commit a violation of Penal Code Section 237, Subdivision B, within the meaning of Penal Code Section 368, Subdivision B, Subsection 1, in that you willfully and unlawfully, by violence, menace, fraud, or deceit, violate the personal liberty of John Doe number 1, who was then a dependent adult within the meaning of Penal Code Section 237, Subdivision B, and Penal Code Section 368, Subdivision B, Subsection 1. Yes. Mrs. Turpin.
Same thing, adult children, that's his oldest son, holding him against his will, false imprisonment.
With that said, you will then come to sentencing. Start, Ms. Lowe, is there any legal cause for a formal arraignment?
No legal cause so waived, Your Honor.
Mr. Morris.
The legal cause so waived, and we wait for sentencing on those last two charges as well.
All right. And Mr. Beecham, under Marcy's law, is there anyone that wishes to address the court on the victim's arraignment or the victim?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so they're going to prepare to bring the kids in now to give their victim statements.
I have just a couple of rules. We need you to speak directly in that microphone so that we can hear you. You know who you are, you have to state your name. And to the extent that you have a written statement and you're going to address us with any of the names of your siblings, we request that you make that general and not list their names as possible.
Okay.
All right, so you may proceed.
Sorry. My parents took my whole life from me, but now I'm taking my life back.
Okay, so this is the 17-year-old Jordan that you're listening to. And she was the one, like I said, that got out of the window, called the police. She's really embracing her newfound freedom now. And she is one actually that I feel very deeply concerned about, that she is not equipped to manage the experiences that she may be exposed to. And I'm hoping that she does have some support, people that will help keep her safe. Otherwise, she could become a target to unscrupulous people.
I'm in college now and living independently. I love hanging out with my friends and life is great. I believe everything happens for a reason. Life may have been bad, but it made me strong. I fought to become the person I am. I saw my dad change my mom. They almost changed me. But I realized what was happening. I immediately did what I could to not become like that. I'm a fighter, I'm strong, and I'm shooting through life like a rocket.
Now, one of the things one of the things that she says is that she watched her dad change her mom. And when you listen to some of the interviews and some of the stories, some of the journal writings that have been released, that kind of thing, it was clear that he had become abusive. Now, he has a brother who is a Pentecostal preacher. It's got a bit one of these big, vanity churches kind of thing. The whole family from which that this man comes from, David Turpin, they all are this extreme religion. They have these extreme religious convictions, belief that set them up for the devaluation of children, or the objectification of children, and that the man is king in the home, and that everybody else is secondary. They believe that the parents gave you life, and that God gives us the right to end life because we bring life. So that's some very extreme religious beliefs that can directly be tied, I think, to these crimes that occurred. And this David Turpin's brother actually wanted to adopt these kids when all this happened. But the cops did an investigation, and they ultimately decided that he had known about what the kids had gone through, and he did not ask anyone to intervene or get help. And that is apparently the reason why he didn't get any of the kids.
All right, is there anyone else?
Yes, Your Honor. John Doe number 2.
Your Honor, we had asked earlier if we could shoot the defendants while the...
Yes, that's fine, just not the victims.
Now this will be the first interesting reaction by David and Louise Turpin when the oldest boy gives his statement. Remember, this is a religious cult-like environment where the male children inherently
Were you recently
have
injured in a car accident?
a
Look at
greater
this
value than the female children do. And so that may be one reason why they seem to value the older son's opinion so much.
Yes. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is...
All right. Take a look at David Turpin. Okay? Look at the look on his face. He looks quite menacing. Would you agree? He's got his head down. His eyes are boring in, and he almost looks like, what are you going to do? I dare you. It's not a soft look of love. It definitely is not a look of, pity. He obviously isn't feeling sorrow for what he's done. This is a controlling, to me, this is the same look as Barry Morphew as he stands in the doorway with an arm up blocking Suzanne. Right? He's got a really strangely intense glare at his oldest son, whom he hasn't seen in months and months and months, hasn't been allowed to speak to him, nothing. Now look back behind David Turpin's left shoulder, your right side. Look at the look on that attorney's face. That is an attorney who's working with Louise Turpin and David Turpin's attorneys for their defense. This man in the blue tie and the blue shirt staring at David Turpin. He knows David Turpin. He knows what David Turpin's relationship is like with his oldest son. And this guy is expecting something. So that tells me the look on David Turpin's face, coupled with the look on the guy back right over his shoulder, he's waiting with bated breath to see what the son is going to do. Is the son going to do what Jordan did, and that is to be honest and go ahead and say, yeah, my parents are abusive jerks? Or can this guy continue to exert his weird, religious control, abusive control onto his kids, even though he hasn't talked to them some time? Pay close attention to his reaction as the son begins to speak.
Joshua and I will be reading two statements today. I will be starting with Jessica's statement.
And that's your sister.
Correct. I love both of my parents so much. Although it may not have been the best way of raising us.
Okay, what do you think of that? What do you think of that reaction that he had there? It was so abrupt, wasn't it? It was so abrupt. Okay. Sorry, I was reading something. This was a weird reaction to me, and it took me a little bit of watching it over and over to finally get a handle on it. Just watch how abrupt it is.
I love both of my parents so much. Although it may not have been the best way of raising us, I'm glad that they did.
Now, he quickly turns, grabs the tissue, and settles back in to watch, this time in a relaxed position. Notice his shoulders are down now instead of up, tight. He doesn't cry. He doesn't use his tissue. It's odd what he did. Let me slow this down.
Statement.
I just want to keep watching him in slow motion. Take it. Watch his face. And now he's relaxed. So I gave some thought to this. See how high up his shoulders are? That's stress, right? He's waiting in anticipation. For what? Why is he filled with anticipation? Why so much stress before the son begins to speak? Because he doesn't know if the son, the oldest son, who's probably got more food than everybody else, treated better than other people, right? Of the other kids. He doesn't know if that son is going to put a knife in his back, or if that son is going to run interference and try to do whatever it is that the defense attorneys have asked the son to do, i.e., help David and Louise.
I love both of my parents so much. Although it may not have been the best way of raising us, I'm...
Okay, so now he's relieved. Shoulders are down. He had to turn and make some big movement. He had to do something, I think, because of the amount of stress and strain of waiting in anticipation. Which way is he going? Is he coming for us, or is he going to help us? See? Once it came through, he had to expend that energy that had been building up, that fight or flight that had been building up. That's the only reason that he turned around and reached and grabbed for that. That gave him movement to burn off some of that uncomfortable energy, that discomfort. Now he's going to settle in and listen. Watch his face.
Glad that they did, because it made me the person I am today. I just want to thank them for teaching.
Okay, so the son says, I'm glad they raised me the way they did because it made me the person I am today. People literally gasped when they heard that. But here's the lesson. That is a very common orientation from children of abuse. They love their parents, even the most monstrous of parents. We have to remember that. The cops have to remember that. CPS has to remember that. Teachers have to remember that when we ask kids, how did you get that black eye? Why do you have stitches in your back? When did this happen? We have to remember kids love their families. They don't want them to get life in prison. They don't want them arrested.
Teaching me about God and faith. I hope that they never lose their faith. God looks at the heart, and I know.
Now this was crazy because if you ask me, I think she looks at her defense attorney and says, thank you. Watch.
Lose their faith. God looks at the heart, and I know He sees theirs. Sorry. I pray often for them. I am doing well. I'm going to college full time. I have an apartment, and I am able to transport myself independently by bus, bike, or walking. We are not supposed to necessarily understand God's will, but we are only to follow and to trust in Him. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, my thoughts.
Okay, so it seems weird that she is so moved by these biblical scriptures from her son. When you see the photographs and the videos of the home and the condition of the physical condition, the mental, emotional condition of these children, and then you watch this and you think, wow, they look like they really love their son. They look like they're really emotionally moved by their son. Okay, you have to remember this, okay? She has been in prison for, at this point, I think 8-9 months, something like that. She's medicated. She's appropriately medicated for whatever her condition is. Because she's in a protected environment, correct? So they come in at a specific time. They give her a specific medication. She does not have the freedom to refuse it, really. And so she's taking medication properly, and her cognition is approaching normal. Can you imagine if somebody could have intervened and gotten her some help before these kids had to be sacrificed?
Then, then your thoughts, says the Lord. Isaiah 55:9. Never lose faith. You are one of his sheep, and he is constantly watching. Over his flock. Over his flock. Sorry. I love you, and I wanted you to know. P.S. God is all we need. The next statement I will read is my own. I cannot describe in words what we went through growing up. Sometimes I still have nightmares of things that had happened, such as my siblings being chained up or getting beaten. But that is the past, and this is now.
Now, I can't help but notice the parents are no longer weeping. Now we're talking about the kids being chained and beaten and starved. Parents are not so moved now. They were highly moved when the son was talking about how great the parents were, how great the Bible was. Oh, they were weeping and crying for what? Their children, or in relief? Were they crying in relief that maybe, just maybe, they're going to have a snowball's chance of hell of living again sometime in the future outside of prison walls? The minute that they're confronted with the reality of the abuse that they rendered upon those children, all the tears dried up.
I love my parents and have forgiven them for a lot of the things that they did to us. Since January, I have learned so much and become very independent. In June of last year, I learned how to ride a bike, and ever since then, I've been hooked and ride it everywhere, such as to school, store, or sometimes I just go on long rides because I enjoy it so much. I live in an apartment and go to a nearby college. I'm getting a bachelor's degree in software engineering, and after I get my bachelor's degree, I'm going to get a job as a software engineer and go to school part-time to get my master's degree. I also have learned how to advocate for myself, how to swim, how to eat healthy and prepare a balanced meal. I've also been learning how to manage money wisely. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Watch David as he ends. This the statement made by the other brother is so this is who I am. You didn't tear me down. This is how great I am doing. David didn't like it. Watch his face.
Wisely. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
He's like, see? He's like, well, he didn't have much to say about me. He didn't like it.
My name is Janet.
Every member of my family fights this fight.
Sorry about that. Let some of these play out.
Latourette. This note is from Joy. I want the court to know that our parents loved each other and loved each of their children. People in Texas, even friends, said our parents were having too many children. Our parents didn't agree.
Okay, I'm having trouble with this statement right off the bat. Okay? This is from one of the little ones. Now I want you to listen to the quality of the thought formation behind these words. People in Texas said my parents were having too many kids. They said this, they said that. People said that. People warned. People said you can't be healthy with this many kids. Does that sound like the words of even a normal, average 15-year-old, much less a 15-year-old who had been living in complete and abject emotional, physical neglect, abuse, nightmare torture? No, it doesn't. I believe that this particular statement was one that may have been written by one of the attorneys, and this young person agreed to sign their name to it. And isn't that the same as re-victimizing a victim?
They felt that God blessed them with all their children. So they kept away from the world and trusted God would guide them through life. Our mother wrote 2 small notes to our father. The first note reads, "Always let God be in control of your life. We have a perfect life because God has always taken such good care of us."
They were swingers. They were staying drunk all the time. David was physically assaulting Louise. And yet they are spouting off religious quotes, biblical scripture. Does this sound like Don Wells? Lori Vallow? Chad Daybell?
I am so thankful to God for this. I would love for us to pray together on a regular basis. Spend our time with God will make our life more awesome.
Now, why is she crying? Why is she crying? Because now this statement was for Louise. People warn there were too many kids, you can't be healthy. This statement is to try and get Louise less time.
The second note reads, "Children are the most awesome gift ever. I've always known our precious and wonderful children are. When they are your own, it's even awesome. The best gifts ever."
Please remember,
Through the years,
the best gifts ever. That was a note being read, a note that she wrote. Children are the best gifts ever. They're the greatest. They're everything. These kids were malnourished. A couple of them had swollen hearts. While both she and David Turpin were overweight, and their refrigerator and freezer were filled with food. And now they've got one of these victims, or she's not the one reading it, but they've got one of their office people reading it with her name on it. How's she supposed to live like that, knowing that her statement was read out loud in court, basically trying to help this abusive father and mother? How does she come? That's more victimization. And Louise knows it. Not that Louise knows it's victimization. Louise knows that this statement was written by her attorney, and it's being read with the false approval of the child that it's being ascribed to try and manipulate the judge. It's obscene. It is obscene.
Things became more and more overwhelming, but they kept trusting in God. I remember our mother sitting in her recliner and crying, saying she don't know what to do.
Okay, so you go to swinger parties, you get drunk, you shop nonstop, you eat and get fat and happy while all your children are literally starving to death, a couple of them to the point of near death from malnutrition. The story is not believable. This letter that's being read out in the name of Joy, one of the kids, is not believable. And frankly, I don't know why it's not illegal. Why is it that a defense attorney is allowed to write a statement and say, please, little 12-year-old Joy, can we please write your name and say that you wrote this? Do you agree with these comments? If you agree, all you got to do is add your name. And she is weeping with gratefulness. That is joy. Because she is saying, thank God they are trying to humanize me. Thank God they're trying to make it look like I was at least a caring mother. No, you weren't. You had too many children and you were leaving them with no care, some of them chained to the bed, while you and your husband went to swinger joints and got drunk for days on end and disappeared from the home.
She didn't want to use rope or chain, but she was afraid her children were taking in too much sugar and caffeine.
Okay, now, the supposedly little Joy says, well, she really wanted our bodies to be healthy, and our loving, sweet mommy thought that we were taking in too much sugar and caffeine, and so she wanted to limit our sugar and caffeine, and that's really the only reason why we weren't allowed to eat. It was for our own good. It's just a good mom. It's just working for our own good. This is the defense attorneys victimizing these children again. And quite frankly, I can't believe that an attorney, a judge, allowed it to happen. I don't know why the prosecutors didn't put a stop to this.
The reason our parents didn't stop buying the soda was because Father needed it for work.
Oh, Father needed soda, Cokes, and root beers. Father needed it for work.
He would fall asleep driving and got in an accident. They didn't know what else.
Okay, who believes that Joy wrote this bull S? This is egregious.
To do. I believe our parents feared if they asked for help, they would lose their children. Our parents didn't know we were malnourished. They thought we all got the gene from our mother because she was so small. I remember Mother saying, God has blessed us with healthy children. Our parents would get us.
You see that look between the two of them? He's turning around looking at her and saying, see what I did for you? See what I did? And she's, thank you. Thank you.
As pizza and Mexican food every other week, and sometimes more than once a week. Our mother would always tell us to let her know if we are still hungry, and she will give us more. Their first child went to a public school. They started noticing she wasn't really learning much, so Mother started teaching her at home and saw a big difference.
See, it's all, everything, the audacity of the California court to charge these parents was really the court abusing the parents because the parents were doing it all for the good of the kid. This is the crap that they asked one of these abused little girls to write her name to. Does this not seem illegal somehow to anybody but me? I can't believe that this was allowed to happen. Where was the guardian ad litem? Why didn't somebody stand up and say, absolutely not, under no circumstances, not no, but hell no, the kids are not going to put their name to this crap?
Our parents decided to start homeschooling all their children. It worked out good at first, but through the years it became very overwhelming. I believe our parents were afraid to put us in public school for many reasons.
Guess y'all saw that, right? What did I say? That he did this. He did this for her because he loves her, because she's so great? Absolutely not. He did this for his business. Because anyone that can get her off from this crap is going to have a never-ending line of clients as a defense attorney. I believe that he wrote it and then got one of those kids to agree to put their name to it, and Joy is one of the young kids. Watch what Turpin says to him. Watch. It's right here. You can see it clear as day. In fact, I'm going to take the sound off and just watch her mouth. Watch the words that she says to him. Thank you. Thank you. Why? Why is she thanking him? For what? If what this little girl's statement is saying, if that's truly coming from the little girl's heart, why would Louise be thanking the defense attorney? For what? Well, we know for what. Because he manipulated these children. He manipulated the oldest son. You can tell by the reaction that David did when he turned around, reached, and grabbed for the tissue.
They felt that God put it on their hearts to homeschool. When we came to California, people treated us so much better, and people started telling us our family was a blessing. Our parents finally felt safe to start taking us out as a family. They got us annual passes to Disneyland and took us to see the Grand Canyon, Flintstone Park, Vegas, etc.
The truth about that is that Louise Turpin was trying to get a reality TV show. She wanted to capitalize on her children and get a television show. That's why she dressed them all up alike and took them to Disney World and got all these weird pictures, and all that.
Every year, from as far back as I can remember, our parents tried to give us the nicest Christmas they could. They would get us what we wanted, even if they couldn't afford it. They always tried to keep up with our birthdays every year, too. Closer to the end, things became more overwhelming again. I truly believe most of this was because our mother lost both of her parents in 2016. I feel like 25 years is too long. I believe with all my heart that our parents tried their best to raise all 13 of us, and they wanted to give us a good life. They believed everything they did was...
Isn't that a weird thing to laugh about? Isn't that strange? Isn't that an odd thing for both of them to laugh? Both of them. Listen to what's being said when they laugh.
25 years is too long. I believe with all my heart that our parents tried their best to raise all 13 of us, and they wanted to give us a good life. They believed everything they did.
You know, it's pretty horrifying, isn't it? It almost makes you wonder, like, ha ha ha, we did it. Ha ha ha, I got them to say it. It's horrible to me. It's horrible.
Was to protect us. If at all possible, I would really appreciate if the court would place our parents as close to the detention center they are in right now. So if we ever want to visit them, we can. Also, I want the 2-year restraining order lifted, and I want to be allowed to talk to both my parents by phone. Thank you for hearing my statement.
Damn it, I didn't have my microphone on. Look at all the smile. It's dupe and delight all over the place. How do you go from this to that creepy smile and then gone again? And look back over here at this guy. He's smiling. We got smiles all over the place. These guys are smiling at this weird, freaky kind of moment that's like, aha, we got him. Made the kid say exactly what I wanted him to say. So all being said for the benefit of the who? For the kids? No, it's not for the kids. It's for the judge. It's trying to convince the judge. It's all been a big misunderstanding, Judge. Don't you know? Everything that we did for the welfare and benefit for our kids. We just made a mistake, Judge. You chained your children to the bed. You made them sit on the floor in the hallways. You had them march around at night and lay side at 3 o'clock in the morning. You attempted sexual abuse and very likely probably completed it. None of it was a mistake. And these defense attorneys should be under investigation by the California Bar, in my opinion. Watch the smiles. It's ridiculous.
I want to be allowed to talk to both my parents by phone. Thank you for hearing my statement.
Is that a smile? Like, what is that? You can always tell when you see people that are basically just hateful to their core, nasty, gross people they're never happy, nothing's ever good enough. When they are able to like run over a small child, then they want to smile, but their face looks like it's going to break, right? We have a couple of creators who are kind of like that. But this guy, that's what he kind of looks like right there. He looks like it hurts him to try to smile. This guy back here, he's smiling. Maybe he's the one that actually wrote the letter. Who knows? Look at that. Is that not a cat that ate the canary? What do you guys think about the smiles on these people's faces? Aren't we so smug? Aren't we the smartest people? Ah ha ha ha. We got that out there in front of the judge. Yeah, the judge is gonna he's gonna buy it all. The judge is a dumbass. He's gonna buy it all. Look at the number of smiles right there in that one tiny little frame. It is disgusting. This guy at least has the humility to recognize, man, we are a lowly group of people. We are some bad people. But this guy, this girl, this man, this guy, they're all grinning, dupe and delight, right? At whose cost? The kids that have already given so much in the way of a lost childhood.
not to address the court, Your Honor, we spoke in chambers about this. There are 5 letters from the minors.
See this woman right here, little Miss Perky Susu? Remember, little Perky Susu was all grinning at the judge and being all sweet. But pay attention to the change in her countenance as the judge begins to hand down his decisions. And the gig is up. They didn't buy the statements written by the defense teams, signed by these various victims. The judge knows it's all theater. It's all BS. None of it was real.
They requested to be given to the defendants to read privately and then returned back to them. Received those letters from their advocate, Rosemary Duran, and after today's proceeding, we will allow Mr. and Mrs. Turpin to read those letters privately and then return them back to the DA's office, in which we'll return them back to the minor victims.
Any objections to that? All right, then after the proceedings. All right, then Ms. Lowe, on behalf of Mr. Turpin, is there anyone that wants to speak on his behalf, or Mr. Turpin wish to address?
For selection perfection, the choice is clear. Thanksgiving.
All right, sir, you may do so. If you could just please use the microphone, make sure you know.
He's going to read his statement.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask my to read those statements for me.
Okay, I want to remind you guys. This is the guy who allowed his children to be chained to beds. This is the guy that got fat, drinking his sodas, eating his candy and ice cream, as his 12, 13-year-old child had an arm circumference the size of a 4-month-old baby. Where were his tears then? Why is it we only get all shook up and have tears when we're about to get handed our sentence? Because the tears are not for the victims. The tears are for him. He's all tore up that he is going to jail.
Your Honor, I thank God for all.
I mean, he wasn't sobbing and carrying on like that when they were reading the victim statements, right? He wasn't all sobbing and crying when Jordan was reading her statement saying, you know, you almost took my life away from me, but I'm not going to let you. I'm going to college. I'm doing great in spite of you. He wasn't sobbing and crying then. Why is he sobbing and crying now? I don't understand this. Because now he knows all eyes are on him. Now it's his turn on stage. So he's got to look like, oh, he's so sorry. Look how sorry he is. The problem is you didn't get all of this theatrical crying and crap when the kids were reading the real victim statements. You hurt us. You starved us. You nearly killed us. This is all show. He's on stage.
All of my children. Each one of them is a blessing from God. My homeschooling and discipline have good intentions. I never intended for any harm to come to my children. I'm sorry if I've done anything to cause them harm. I'm glad we were able to resolve this case without my children being forced to testify. I love my children, and I believe my children love me. I hope and pray that my children can stay close to each other and look out for each other, since their mother and father cannot be there for them and with them.
What the hell did she just say? Let's listen to that again, because I can't believe my ears.
I'm glad we were able to resolve this case without my children being forced to testify. I love my children, and I believe my children love me. I hope and pray that my children can stay close to each other and look out for each other, since their mother and father cannot be there for them.
I hope that my children can be close to one another and look out for one another, since their mother and their father cannot be there for them. Isn't this strange that they don't seem to have any awareness that other people know the truth? Isn't that strange? This man and this woman did nothing to look after these kids. In fact, these kids needed someone to protect them from this mother and father.
And with them. I hope the very best for my children in their future. I hope my oldest son successfully completes the 2 college degrees he's been working on.
Okay, so he's got to correct this to say, I hope my oldest son and my daughters.
They are successful in their chosen professions.
Nobody cares, you abusive ass. You're full of it. You're playing a game.
Success in finalizing his career plan and completing whatever additional education may be required. I wish happiness and success for my other children as they complete their lower level education and make productive plans for their future. I am so proud of each and every one of my children. I miss all of my children, and I will be praying for them. I long for the opportunity to have contact with them again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishes to speak on behalf of Mr. Turpin?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
More, is there anyone wishes to speak on behalf of Mrs. Turpin or Mrs. Turpin?
Yes, we do have a statement from Ms. Turpin. Just one moment. She'll be reading.
So she's going to read it, and she's got it together. Listen, she's not going to be all tore up like old daddy boy.
I want to say to you, Your Honor, and the court, I'm sorry for everything I've done to hurt my children. I love my children so much. I'm blessed to be the mother of each one of them. I only want the best for them. Their happiness is very important to me. They're very smart and amazing individuals.
Their happiness is very important to her. Now, she don't give a damn about their starvation. She doesn't much care about the bruises that the chains make. She doesn't seem to care that they're not getting educated. I'm having a hard time understanding exactly how these kids are supposed to have been happy. And again, it wasn't simply mental illness and that these kids were being abused and or neglected to the highest level of the law, but that both she and David, they were engaged in this swinger lifestyle. There was copious amounts of alcohol being consumed. Things were off the rails. The kids were in the way. They wanted the kids out of the way.
I hope they get all the education they need to make their dreams come true. They deserve only the best in life. I don't want any of them to be sad or depressed because of all of this. I want them to know that Mom and Dad are going to be okay. I also want them to know I believe God has a special plan for each of them. I really look forward to the day I can see them, hug them, and tell them I'm sorry. I want them to know how special they are and how very proud I am of them.
Okay, she wants them to know how special they are, how very proud that she is of them. She didn't speak to them. Jordan has said they didn't know her. The mother didn't talk to them. Okay, again, this is theater that is for the judge in the effort of trying to get a lighter sentence. And the fact that these defense attorneys wrote out a statement and then went to all of these kids and said, hey, can we put your name on this? And they got all the way down to little Joy before they found one that just didn't understand what it was and finally said, yeah, that's fine. But she doesn't really know what it was that she was saying. And I think those words will come back to haunt her. Should be illegal, what they did. This is not for the kids. The kids never mattered. The sadness, the tears, it's fear that they are going to be going to prison for the rest of their lives. That is what is driving them, I think, in my opinion.
I pray for my children every day. I want to say again, I'm truly sorry. I am for everything I've done to hurt them. I love them more than they could ever imagine. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Was there anyone else?
Not at this time.
Read from
Not as a sentencing, Your Honor, with regard to the criminal protective orders, I did provide the court with termination of the current protective orders with new protective orders for the victims who wish to have a protective order. I reached out to all their advocates or themselves personally and gave Your Honor the protective orders that they're seeking at this time.
All right, and as well as more people review the protective orders and discuss with the clients. It applies to some, not all. There's also differences with respect to the amount of time. You have to explain that to your clients.
I have it.
Yeah, sure.
All right, and Mr. and Mrs. Turpin, you understand that there are protective orders that the court is going to put in place today. Those protective orders are going to be different depending upon who the child is, what they've requested, in addition for the length of time. To the extent there is a protective order, in fact, that does preclude you from being able to have any personal contact, any contact by mail, in any sort of writing form, whether it be email, text, or any social media, even through third persons, except as ordered by a court, where you may have limited contact. But other than that, the contact is excluded. Do you understand that, Mr. Turpin?
So the judge is saying, no, we don't want you to have contact with these kids. It'll be up to the kids whether they want contact with you.
Not in this court. Thank you very much.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Before I sentence both the defendants, when I received this case some time ago, and as the case has been pending in my court up until today's date, there is one consistent theme that goes through my mind. It was referenced earlier by one of the children, and that is that children are indeed a gift. They're a gift to their parents, they're a gift to their family, to their friends, they're a gift to society. They're a gift to their parents in the sense that a parent should be joyful of firsts in their child's life. First day of school, first date, first graduation, first job, marriage. All of those things should be enjoyed by parent and child alike. But they're also a gift to society. They're a gift to society because you don't know what a child is going to do when they get through their schooling and seek their occupation. Maybe they'll become a scientist and discover a cure for some disease, or they'll be a doctor or a first responder and save someone's life. Or maybe they'll enter the military, protect our country. Or maybe they'll just otherwise become a good citizen who makes the world a better place. The selfish, cruel, and inhumane treatment of your own children has deprived them, your family, your friends, and society, and especially both of you, those gifts. Their lives have been permanently altered in their ability to learn, grow, and thrive. You have delayed their mental, physical, and emotional development. To the extent that they do thrive, here's from today that perhaps a couple of them are. It will be not because of you both, but in spite of you both. You have severed the ability to interact and raise your children. You have created and brought into this world. The only reason that your punishment is less than the maximum time, in my opinion, is because you accepted responsibility at an early stage of the proceedings. You spared your children from having to relive the humiliation and the harm they endured in that prison wars. So any punishment that is given to you
Okay, so
today,
this is pretty funny. I mean, none of this is funny, don't get me wrong, but this defense attorney, I don't know if you can see her. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's going to be hard to see that. Let me figure out how to do this. Go right here. Okay, so watch this, the female defense attorney as let's see. Yeah, that works. Okay. Watch the female defense attorney as he's talking about sparing that the only reason that the parents don't get the maximum is because they spared the children having to testify in court. Watch her facial expression. It's crazy.
punishment is less than the maximum time, in my opinion, is because you accepted responsibility at an early stage of the proceedings. You spared your children from having to relive the humiliation and the harm they endured in that prison wars. So any punishment that is given to you today.
She didn't like that, did she? Did you see the look on her face? She's like, oh, really, like for real. She kind of got that sassy kind of thing going on, didn't she? Yeah. Okay, so watch her as she goes forward, because you're gonna keep seeing that she has a hard time controlling. Let me see if that helps y'all see that better. She has a hard time. Yeah, she has a hard time controlling. You see her thoughts and her emotions come out on her face in micro expressions. So keep an eye on her while they're going through the sentencing. It's kind of interesting.
Will pale in comparison to the fact that you will not have an opportunity to spend 4 years with your children as a normal parent would. So, the disposition and sentencing will proceed as follows. Probation will be denied, and that it was the bar before disposition. The sentence will be the same as to both defendants. As to count 1, violation of Penal Code Section 206, torture, both defendants are sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, with a minimum parole eligibility of 7 years. As to count 24, both defendants.
See, look at her face. What is that? What's wrong? What did she expect? I don't understand why why this made her angry. It's amazing to me. I'm dumbfounded at this woman's reaction. Listen to the words as her emotions, if as everything comes out in those micro expressions. She is not a very nice person.
Sentence will be the same as both defendants. As to count one, violation of Penal Code Section 206, torture. Both defendants are sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, with a minimum parole eligibility of 7 years. As to count 24,
Ooh, she did not like when he said life. She was shocked. She was shocked. Watch that one more time.
as a normal parent would. So, the disposition and sentencing will proceed as follows. Probation will be denied, and then it was the bargain for disposition. Sentence will be the same as to both defendants. As to count one, violation of Penal Code Section 206, torture. Both defendants are sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, with a minimum parole eligibility of 7 years. As to count 24, both defendants will be sentenced as a violation of child endangerment. Both defendants will be sentenced to the upper term of 6 years in state prison. That term is selected because it is the bargain for disposition. That term is to be served consecutively to the term imposed in count one. As to count 15, a violation of Penal Code Section 368B1, that being dependent adult abuse, corporal sentence to defend both defendants in the midterm of 3 years in state prison. By operation of law, it would be 1/3 of the midterm or 1 year to be served consecutively with all other counts. As to count 16, a violation of Penal Code Section 368B1, that being a charge of dependent adult abuse, corporal sentence the defendants to the midterm of 3 years in state prison. By operation of law, it will be 1/3 of the midterm or 1 year. That 1 year is to be served consecutive with all other counts. As to count 17, a violation of Penal Code Section 368B1, violation of dependent adult abuse. Both defendants will be sentenced.
She is very unhappy with this judge, isn't she? I don't know what she thought was going to happen, but yeah, I guess she thought it was going to be a slap on the wrist, Kathy. It's maybe she's the one that wrote the bogus victim statements. Yeah, maybe. It's very, very strange. It does hurt, Gonzo. It is a terrible case. It is. And it is horrible what continues to happen with these kids. They could have done so much better. I can't imagine what they were thinking trying to manage the aftercare of these kids either. This was a massive fail, all the way around. It is a massive fail, no doubt about it. Welcome. Hey, Anne Frank, hadn't seen you in a long time. Welcome. Okay, let's try to finish this up here.
In the midterm, 3 years in state prison. Again, by operation of law, that would be 1 year to be served consecutive to all other counts. In count 18, a violation of Penal Code Section 368B1, dependent adult abuse. Both defendants will be sentenced to the midterm of 3 years in state prison. By operation of law, that would be 1 year, and that would be served consecutively to all other counts. In count 19, a violation of Penal Code Section 368, subdivision B, subsection 1, violation of dependent adult abuse. Both defendants will be sentenced to the midterm of 3 years in state prison. By operation of law, that would be 1 year to be served consecutively with all other counts. As to count 20, violation of Penal Code Section.
Now pay attention to David. He's starting to get angry, I think.
Will be sentenced for dependent adult abuse to the midterm of 3 years in state prison. By operation of law, that will be 1 year to be served consecutively to all other counts. As to count 26, violation of Penal Code Section 273A, subdivision A, child endangerment. Both defendants will be sentenced to the midterm of 4 years in state prison by operation of law up to 16 months to serve consecutively to all other counts. In count 27, which is a violation of Penal Code Section 273A, Subdivision A, child endangerment, both defendants will be sentenced to the midterm in state prison of 4 years. The operation of law will be 1/3 of the midterm, or 16 months. That time is to be served consecutively to the time imposed in all other counts. In count 29, a violation of Penal Code Section 237B, false imprisonment of a defendant adult, the defendant will be sentenced to the midterm of 3 years in state prison. The operation of law will be 1 additional year consecutive to all other counts. This is count 32. The court will sentence the defendants to the false imprisonment charge under Penal Code Section 237B and the Penal Code violation 368B1, false imprisonment of a defendant adult. Both defendants will receive the midterm of 3 years in state prison, or by operation of law 1 year to be served consecutively to all other counts. In count 37, both defendants will be sentenced for false imprisonment violation of Penal Code Section 236 with a midterm of 2 years in state prison. The operation of law will be 1/3 of the midterm, or 8 months. That's to be served consecutively to all other counts. And then finally, in count 39, both defendants to be sentenced for a false imprisonment charge violation of Penal Code Section 236. Both defendants will receive the midterm of 2 years in state prison, or by operation of law 1/3 of the midterm of 8 months. That is to be sentenced consecutively to all other counts. Total commitment then would be life with the possibility of parole with a minimum parole eligibility of 7 years plus an 18-year determinate term, meaning the minimum sentence would be...
David looks furious, doesn't he? Alright. So basically, they got life in prison. That's pretty much what it boils down to, is life in prison. Yeah? Couldn't happen to a nicer couple of people. However, I'm still horrified by the statements that were attributed to some of these kids. I think it's egregious. I'm horrified that it was allowed to happen. I'm horrified at the way they managed the donations that these children were provided for their care. So there's a lot going on with this story. It's definitely not a story that's finished. It is actively in investigation right now to find out what did happen with the funds and the care of these kids. And so we'll keep watching for that. But in the overall long run of things, life in prison for these people, they're going to have to serve a minimum of 25 years. And at their ages, which is around 60, they're going to serve, they'll be anywhere between 80 and 86 or 87 before they even come up for parole. And they probably won't get it, to be fair. All right, everybody, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. All the members, we had so much fun the other night. We are going to do a members live chat. We're probably going to do it once every 2 weeks or so. And so we'll definitely do that. That was so much fun. We're going to do it through Zoom. Probably going to do a giveaway each time we go live on Zoom with a live audience. We'll probably do some kind of little game or something each time. So I hope you'll consider, becoming a member of the channel. At the very least, though, if you just want to subscribe and hit the little bell to make sure you get the notifications, be sure to share the videos that you enjoy. Share them on your social media. Try to get, more viewers to come in. That would be awesome. YouTube algorithm is not showing the love, for true crime right now. So, anyway, I hope you'll consider joining the channel or at least subscribing. I think that'd be awesome. And thank y'all so much. Mods, y'all are amazing. I appreciate all your help. And I look forward to getting together with you guys. Tomorrow I'll be doing some more. I got 2 more videos. Going to do a video on Summer Wells and then a little bit on Lori Vallow. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Hybrid Pisces is with us, and she is actually the person who received the Oculus in our last member appreciation night. And she was in total shock, and it was wonderful. She was the big winner, Yvette, absolutely. And it is wonderful. It was great because she's got 2 kids that will, and I'm not saying whether they're her children or her grandchildren or what, but there are 2 kids that will be very excited to have the system. So it all turned out really, really great. I do have some more gifts to be given out over the next few weeks. And so, like I said, we'll be going live on the Zoom meeting, and we'll do some more giveaways. And so, if you guys want to, get in on that fun, then just join the channel and then join us for Zoom. We had a really great time. It was lots of fun. All right. Thank y'all mods for helping. I appreciate y'all so much. I hope we didn't have any troll problems tonight. I hope, fingers crossed. And if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate it if you would share our videos on your social media and try to get a little bit better circulation. I'm so glad, critters. Thank you for being here. I hope you're getting stronger and feeling better. I know you've not been feeling well. We've got several people that have in our channel community that have COVID and whatnot. So I just saw the Melanie Pulowski arrest. Yeah, she was shook, wasn't she, Vicky? Yeah, she was shook. And Alex was just creepy, hanging out in the dark parking lot. Okay. All right, people. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about a situation with Summer Wells, and then also the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell case. And please subscribe, hit the bell, give a thumbs up, and if you can, you may subscribe and join us on our live Zoom members only fun nights. But if you can't, don't worry. That's perfectly fine. That you still have all access to the content that's created. All right? All right, everybody. See you tomorrow. Y'all sleep well.